Welcome back to Leaders Lead the Podcast. I am Tony Taylor, and today's conversation is for leaders, entrepreneurs, for professionals, and high achievers who look successful on the outside, but feel exhausted underneath it all. What life looked like on the outside versus on the inside for me. I had a career, I had a podcast, I was starting to get speaking opportunities on the internet. Things look good. On paper, things look good. On my resume, things look good. But internally, I was exhausted. My body was carrying stress that I didn't even understand yet. I fully don't understand it. That's why we're doing this podcast episode today. But my mind never shut off. I was constantly pushing, constantly thinking, constantly carrying that pressure. And one of the scariest parts of it was that I normalized it. I thought that being overwhelmed was just a part of me being driven. I thought the exhaustion meant that I was working hard enough. I thought that if I pushed a little harder, everything will calm down eventually. But it didn't. It never did. I remember the moment when things finally snapped for me. I called my wife and I told her, I cannot do this anymore. And I quit my job. I never worked for anyone ever again. And I think there's a lot of high achievers silently living like that right now. People who feel trapped, people, if they could, they would walk away tomorrow just like I did. So today we're going to talk about how to not get to that point and what to do if you are already there. And that is what our guest is going to help us with today. Today, we're going to be talking about burnout, the nervous system regulation, survival mode, and the hidden physical cost of high achievement. Joining me today is Dr. Danielle Griffith. Dr. Danielle Griffith is a somatic educator, something I've been wanting to learn about. She is a TEDx speaker. She is a certified hypnotherapist. That is really cool. And she is the author of an incredible book called The Somatic Exercise Made Simple. She helps high achievers understand the psychological cost of ambition and teaches how to release chronic stress, trauma, and pain stored in the body. Hey, what's up? I'm Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the Podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the Podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common. And that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
Yeah, before we get into the science and the tools and all of that, I want to get into you. Like, how did you come to this work? As I said, like as I was talking about this when I was doing the intro, I was so happy because I've been hearing a lot about somatic healing, and I know for me, I wouldn't even care about it if it wasn't some healing that I desperately needed. And so I'm going to assume that that's how you came about this practice. But I don't want to be presumptuous.
No, you definitely hit the nail on the head. You know, it was extended stint, similar storyline, working full-time job, running a business, family. This was best really still through the height of COVID when I kind of hit this wall in 21, after having my second son, so still postpartum. Both my husband and myself lost our fathers that same year within a few months of one another. So we're going through grief, stress, anxiety, all the things that COVID was bringing, or not bringing, just like the whole stress around like not knowing, like, do I have to go in the office or to isolate, and vaccinations and, all those other things, as well as just trying to continue to move forward, trying to progress in my career, trying to continue to keep my business afloat even through COVID. I even became a certified yoga instructor during that time, trying to get my health back, after having a baby, trying to normalize some things, feel good about myself. I was teaching as well, just doing all the things, busying myself. And maybe it was a way to distract myself from all the stressors of life, but also compounding it, and making myself believe that I'm trying to do more, trying to, just be that high achieving person. And eventually my husband had to stop me, like, you're looking old. You're not doing something right.
Damn, is that how he said it? You're looking old.
You look old.
I love the candidness.
Yeah, he has a way with words. And I just had to stop and think, like, not me, like that. But looking at myself, like, I am. What's going on? And I'm feeling it. I was getting 3 hours of sleep on average each night because I was, burning the candle at both ends, especially when you're an entrepreneur, staying up late, trying to work on your business, and then having to turn around and get up in the morning to clock into your job, sending the kids to school, all the things. I'm like, this isn't how I want to live my life. And I had to recognize that at that point. I couldn't just ignore what he was saying at that point because I was feeling it. Sometimes we want to get defensive and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just ignore it, like, oh, I look good, I moisturize and all the things. But I had to recognize, like, I'm aging myself a lot faster. I'm getting more gray hairs. My eyebrows were turning gray, and I was probably doing it to myself. And so I had to figure out how to get out of that cycle. I didn't know how to make that train stop. I was in the point where, like, if I just stop doing all the things, the world is going to come to the end. Like, I'm going to stop making money. I'm going to lose relationships.
Yep.
If I don't do all these things. But I'm like, there has to be a better way. There has to be people out there that are still successful and not doing as much, not feeling the way that I feel. And that's kind of how I went down the research journey of running into somatics and what that means, like building the awareness of my body to relieve the stress and pain, and then running into the hypnotherapy where I did a lot of mindset work. That was major for me, just in terms of being able to relinquish the things and recognize, the money will come, the status, the progress, the achievements will come, even if I let things go. And it was through both of those practices that I was able to, get my life back and get my life in alignment, essentially, so that I could start to feel whole again.
Wow. Just as you were saying that kind of made me feel a little emotional, because I went through similar situations, and I see people right now going through similar situations. And the, most podcasts that I've seen, not that I'm like subscribed to those, is that that whole hustle culture. Mm-hmm. If you gotta want it as bad as you want to breathe, and if you hustle, it's your mindset. Did you? I'm curious. Were you like a lot of those entrepreneurs at first, like, I could just push through this? It's my mindset. This is the way that it's supposed to be, kind of.
Yeah, I think eventually. I don't think it was that in the beginning. I think it was me trying to build an empire, or what I thought, I thought I was doing. And not wanting to drop the ball, wanting to make it happen in a relatively short period of time, but not having real examples or I don't want to say real, but realistic examples of what progress looks like and what like was appropriate for me and my lifestyle, and as well as just like I was saying before, just kind of the busying myself too, like as a distraction from some of the things I was fighting from. Like I mentioned, the grief. At that point, my marriage was pretty much on the rocks because of all the things, right? Like, not really being there like I wanted to, or my kids, because I was working so much. But I didn't want to accept that and just still continue to do more so that I can mentally ignore it, instead of fixing it. And so, it was just through that conversation with my husband, realizing like, you can't continue to run from it. You can't continue to put more on your plate, because either your relationships are going to break or your health is going to break. I had high blood pressure. I was still struggling with losing weight from after the pregnancy, and just other things related to my health. I was suffering from mental health issues, and I needed a fix. I needed to find an option, and I didn't want to necessarily turn to medications, and that was really before like the injection boom in terms of weight loss, and I didn't really want to get on mental health medications. I didn't feel like I was there, at least through conversations I had with my therapist. But there was still work to be done, and being able to have this mind-body practice through somatics where I was more aware of how I was feeling mentally and physically, and being able to start to understand what was triggering those things. That's where the pivot happened for me.
I'm curious, were there any, for the listeners and the viewers that are in this spot right now that we're talking about, were there any signs that you ignored, to where like now, since they say that you know better, when you know better, you do better? Are there any signs where you're like, oh man, that was a dead giveaway. How the hell did I miss that?
Right. I think the main thing was the sleep, not just working so much that I was getting little sleep, but restlessness at night, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to fall back to sleep. It helped me create good sleep hygiene and habits, and it helped me learn to calm my mind and body so that I could get rest. I think for people that are in this constant rat race, we've convinced ourselves, I've seen conversations online that, I don't need more than 4 hours of sleep. My body's good. I just wake up after 4 hours of sleep. Like, there's something else going on, that your body is waking you up. Like, yeah, it might be something waking you up. Like, well, a lot of us have things going on in our subconscious mind that will wake us up, but our body still isn't fully rested. We have, hormone levels that are increased, our cortisol levels that need to reset at night. And there's a minimum number of hours that needs to happen. And a lot of us aren't getting it. So I think that's kind of the main one. If we've convinced ourselves, I don't need sleep, I can do without, I can keep going without, eventually your body is going to tell you otherwise.
Are there some things that like these high achievers miss, like when their body is trying to tell them something? Like, what are the signs that your body is like, hey, wake up, you're working too much?
Yeah. I would say like muscle cramping. Sometimes we might think, oh, especially those of us that go to the gym, like, oh, it's just because I worked out a lot. But if you're feeling intense cramping, like for me, it was often my forearm. If I was under a lot of stress, I'd feel a cramp there, and I wasn't necessarily arm day that day. So I was starting to become aware, like, hey, I started to feel this twitch there, or even in my shoulders. I often had a twitch in my eye when I was under a high amount of stress. Digestive issues as well. If we're finding, especially at night, if we're constantly getting up, like my stomach's cramping a lot consistently, no matter what we eat, like it could be a healthy meal and it's still getting up, suffering from dietary issues.
Damn.
It could be other things going on, like stress. I've identified for me, like, those nights where I do have a lot of stress and going to bed with that weight, waking up in the middle of the night, if that, that dream or whatever subconscious thing woke me up. Oftentimes a lot of us might be money issues, right? Like stressing about being able to pay a bill.
Especially the entrepreneur.
Right. I mean, for me, I can even speak from, I got a $3,000 medical bill for my son just the other day. Like, gosh, I gotta go online and pay that bill. But if that's keeping me up at night, I'm also going to the bathroom. It's cramping up my stomach. So those are kind of the common things, and we'll often just attribute, oh, I didn't eat well, and that could be too. But if even when you're fixing the diet and it's still not working, if you're getting rest in terms of your workout and you're still feeling the cramping, the twitch in your shoulders, the whatever the case may be, there might be some other weight that you're carrying that's leading to that.
Wow, this is going to help a lot of people. I can't wait to send this to my entrepreneur friends, because I actually have a group text with a couple entrepreneurs, and the same symptoms that you're talking about right now. Yeah. We are all getting them. The eye twitches, the waking up, the muscle twitches. And I think a lot of us, it's like, one thing that I'm noticing is like the entrepreneur life is like this, but like, do it have to be like this? Like,
right.
Like,
right.
I don't know. Is there another way to get through this? 'Cause I mean, and I'm right there with you. Like, once I noticed that those things were happening, and same thing, just like your husband, my wife is like on me constantly. Make sure you get some sleep. Put that phone up. Do this, do that, do that. And I don't know. I feel bad for the people that are still stuck in that. Yeah.
I think it's helpful, like your wife is your accountability partner, essentially, having somebody to remind you it's living this life, breaking the habits that we created as entrepreneurs and business people is hard, especially when our society continues to feed it and perpetuate it. We start to think that that's how we're supposed to live. And the title of my TEDx, the post-pandemic new normal isn't normal. Like, this way that we live is not normal. But we've convinced ourselves because we have these lofty goals. But what I've learned is we can still meet those goals. We can still achieve those goals when we're more rested, when we're more aware of how we feel, because we can actually be more productive. If we're lacking sleep or suffering from brain fog, if other things are distracting us because of the stress, because of our health issues, we can't fully focus and put ourselves into our work like we want to because of all the other things that are going on, mentally and physically, until we can manage it better. I'm not saying that this is necessarily going to oh, if you do some breath work and movement, it's going to cure you, and you're never going to feel any stress or anything like that, because it's not true, right? That's stress is a part of life. We're going to go through ups and downs, and that's just expected, but it's a way to manage it so that, okay, I'm aware that my eye is twitching. What's going on? What's causing this? And can I do some things? Can I break myself away from the thing that's causing the stressor? Can I do some movement, some breath work, some meditation to reduce my stress levels, to lower my cortisol levels, to bring me back to a more normal state? Even if the stressor hasn't gone away, I can help manage it so that I'm not in the hospital thinking I'm having a heart attack, but it's actually an anxiety attack. Because I've also seen that increase significantly. And not to say that you should ignore if you're feeling that, because we never know if and when it could actually be a heart attack, but we can significantly reduce the number of episodes that we're having managing our anxiety.
Yeah, I noticed you mentioned your TED Talk, and one thing that stuck out to me was, well, the first thing was that you're a beautiful speaker. That's the first thing. The second thing was how calm and poised you were, and now, and that's something that I'm noticing, how calm and poised you are right now. Has it always been this way, or is this new? Because I know that people are watching this, they're looking at this right now, and they're like, I want that. I was watching that and looking at that thinking, I want that calm.
I would say it's a combination of both. I've naturally, at least in terms of my tonation in my voice and things like that's natural. I say I get it from my father. He used to be a DJ, and I have his voice. But just in terms of like being at peace, I definitely attribute that to the practice and being able to go into situations like this. Normally maybe a podcast might stress me out or get anxious. But I can do the exercises. I know what tools specifically I can use to help calm my nerves, to help be present, to be clear-minded and be able to speak my mind without the anxiety and anxiousness getting the best of me. So I never used to, especially growing up, like want to be on stages and present in front of people. But, all of this has called me and led me in that direction.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like a given with the job, especially when you're in the education space and educating people, because I'm sure you get emails all the time with people wanting you to come and speak.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a great way to manage it. I see all the time, especially like with hypnotherapy, like one of the common uses of hypnotherapy is stage fright, right? People are afraid to get on stage to speak to people, and you can use the practice to lower those fears and anxieties. You can either do like guided recordings, there's YouTube videos and things like that, or you can go to somebody like me, a coach, to help you with specific fears or anxieties. And then just to continue to manage it on your own, because you can't necessarily run to a coach every time you're going to get on the stage. But, like, all right, if I do some breathing in and out, close my eyes, if I envision myself on the stage, picture myself, everything going perfect, what does that feel like? And just being able to embody it, knowing how that feels, to do a great job and be happy with your performance. And then even if you didn't do it perfectly, right, envision yourself, what does it look like if you messed up, and how do you recover from it? and then being like, oh yeah, that wasn't that bad because I know what to do to recover. And that lowers the fear and anxiety of getting on stage. So, just those kind of simple practices that I do. I don't necessarily have to take myself through the whole, guided meditation at this point, but, it definitely helps. And I, try to share that with other people.
Wow. And so you could use that, I would imagine, for not just speaking, but all circumstances, correct?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many uses. Like, for me, just when I learned about the hypnotherapy and that it was a thing, like it's not just this woo-woo, because it was kind of this progression, right? I ran into, the concept of manifestation. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, looking into more of that, like, what is that? Like, oh, the art of hypnotherapy actually kind of is similar to the manifestation. And so that's kind of how I ran into it. But it allowed me to overcome my fears of money, just in terms of being afraid to stop doing everything that I was doing because I was afraid I was going to lose money or things weren't going to happen for me. My business wasn't going to move forward. That was the main reason I kept adding more to my plate, trying to make sure that the money was going to come. But it helped me realize I don't need all those things. All these things aren't in a line of vision for my future. What does that look like? What do I see myself doing? And then kind of backing that vision up, a few months, a few weeks, few years, whatever the case may be, to show like I didn't need to do all these things to get there. And I may not have the exact path and framework at this point, but I know where I'm going and I know what I'm not doing. And that just kind of freed me mentally and also allowed me to be open to and receptive to opportunities that I would not have been before.
Yeah, I can testify to that part. I know for me when, enough was enough. And when I start taking things away from, as far as like activities to get the thing, to get the money, to get the deal, to get the sale, I started noticing that stuff really coming to me, and not like, and I'm pretty woo woo, but I mean, it was coming to me, and I'm just like, whoa, is that all I had to do? I was going to ask you, does that come from a lack of awareness and our ability, like almost like a lack of self-worth almost for people?
I think for some, a lack of self-worth. I think a lot of times it just comes out of a fear of failure. Sometimes people have come from difficult, family lives, financial situations. Maybe they grew up in a lower income household and they're finally seeing themselves out of it, but afraid to get back into it. Like, if I stop doing this, I'll go back to that. Or they've had poor examples of people who manage money, and so they have preconceived notions of what it looks like to manage money, what it should be or what it shouldn't be. Or even run a business, even if it's not necessarily money specific, but maybe the people in their immediate circle all tried to start businesses and they all failed, right? And so if that's your example of what it means to be an entrepreneur, then it's hard to break that mindset until you one, have good examples, and two, see yourself being that example, seeing yourself being successful. If we continue to feed ourselves the narrative that I'm not going to be successful, that I'm going to fail, that, your life is going to keep happening and I'm going to have to keep putting my dreams to the side to take care of life, then that's exactly what's going to happen, because we're going to allow it to happen. Obviously things are going to come up in life. I'm going to get a flat tire. I'm going to have to take my kid to the doctor. I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z. But until we know that that's not going to make or break us, it doesn't have to stop the show, we can still continue to move forward. But a lot of times we allow those things to stop us from making forward progress.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clearing that up. I know that is helping so many people listening to this right now. I'm over here taking notes myself. Sure. For people that are just hearing the term somatic work for the first time, I'm curious, what does that really mean? Yeah.
It's using simple activities like breath work, meditation, and movement. Those are kind of the three baselines, if you will, to bring awareness to your body, to start to understand how you're feeling and be able to relinquish any stress, pain that you're carrying in your body. And so it starts with that awareness so that you can do the specific movements, you can do the breath work to target those areas that are being impacted. So like we said, maybe you're feeling the cramp in your arm, but you may not really be fully aware of it until you slow down, right? There's times where, I didn't really even notice my eye twitching. I was working a job for several years, and there was like pretty much a year straight where my eye twitched. And it wasn't until I really slowed down, what is going on? I feel this annoyance and it's still bothering me and it's continuing, but I don't know how to make it stop, right? But until I started to slow down, doing some breathing, what is actually triggering this? Am I feeling it literally all the time, all throughout the day? Or is it when I'm having certain conversations, when I'm thinking about certain issues, when I'm interacting with certain people, and really kind of allowing myself to understand the feeling and when it happens. And then doing some movements that start to feel good to my body, including breathing, that help relax and reduce the sensation, or even make it stop. Maybe I'm in a moment where I'm high stress and I start to feel the twitch, what's going on? What's causing this? Oh, it was that bill that came in. Let me do some breathing, flow in and out. Maybe some neck stretches. Maybe I'm feeling some tension that's linked to it in my neck, doing some shoulder rolls, relaxing my mind and body, and seeing if that helps. And then just kind of over time, owning the practice, allowing myself to find times of days that work for me. Maybe it's first thing in the morning, maybe it's in the evening, maybe it's in the midst of the day, between back-to-back meetings, and finding the movement, finding the breathing activities that really benefit me. And I think that's what I like most about the practice. It's very customized, individualized. If you're just going to a yoga studio and say, okay, they're going to do a somatic workshop, and that's fine for a one-time thing to learn it, to the baseline, to get the tools. But really, it's an individualized practice. Unless you're working with somebody one-on-one, and even just for any health and wellness, right? If you're going to a group setting, you're not getting the specific needs, right, addressed until you get that one-on-one treatment where you're looking at your specific concerns and how to address them individually. You're not getting the true care that you need. And that's why I appreciate the practice, because it's simple. I don't necessarily need, somebody to guide me and put together a plan for me to do it. I can see what works best for me. And I can do the things that works best for me and not rely on somebody else to tell me what's going to work best for me.
That makes sense. So I'm curious if I am, let's say, like, I'm getting ready to do a task that's like anxiety inducing. Let's say, what do entrepreneurs do? Okay. Yeah. What if they're going to like a networking meeting and they're like just super anxious? They're sitting in a car, they're sweating, and they're shaking, and all of a sudden, boom, you pop up in the driver's seat, just like those insurance commercials. What would that look like? Yeah. How would you fix them? Not fix them, but how would you help them with the situation?
Yeah, I would basically start with helping them settle by, encourage them, if you're in a space where you can, closing your eyes and start with breathing. If anything, that is the best way to kind of ground, calm our nerves, reduce some of those stress levels. It always comes back to the breath, whatever we do. And deep inhales, filling up the lungs, and exhales. And when you exhale, you're just letting it out. You feel that tension release through your body. And then, taking a moment, okay, now that you've breathed in and out, you start to feel a shift in your body. Where did some of that tension leave? And where are you still carrying it? Are you noticing some of those twitches that we talked about, like maybe a slight muscle spasm or discomfort in the lower back? And start to do some movements that feel good to you in those areas. Like maybe it's the neck stretches, the shoulder rolls, some twists in your seat, stretch out the lower back, and continuing to breathe. Breath to movement is important, because when we breathe, that slow, intentional breath, and as we're doing the movement, it drives the blood and the circulation to those areas. So the oxygen that you're breathing in is targeting those areas to release the tension that you're carrying in those areas. So it's literally your mind telling it, I want to heal your shoulder. I want to heal your back in this moment. You may not be fully aware of it, but when you're thinking about those specific parts of your body, that's what's happening. And then once you've done a few and your body's telling you, like, yeah, that feels good. I think, I've done enough movement. It doesn't have to be a ton, and it's slow movements. Just sit with it for a minute, continuing to breathe, noticing the shift, noticing how you're feeling, noticing how you want to move forward, that calming presence, embodying that and bringing that with you into whatever meeting or event you're going to next.
Wow. Dr. Griffith, just you talking about going through this exercise, I was imagining myself sitting in the car, and you actually took away the edge that I like to have coming into these interviews. That was so good. That is so good.
I mean, you can definitely still have the energy. So if you want to go into the event energized, right, and you want energy, not anxiety, right? And that's different. And so that can be what you meditate on, that moment of stillness. Like, right, what does it feel like for me to have that level of energy, the excitement, being able to, effectively communicate with people, not being afraid to talk to people, and, just lowering the nerves and bringing that forward.
Oh, that is so good. I like that. You're good.
Thank you.
This is so good. What would you say to somebody that think that nervous system work is woo-woo, fake, or or soft? Because I'm trying to pull as many people as I can to this.
Yeah. I mean, I say start with the breath. Even if you don't want to, like, oh, I feel weird doing shoulder rolls. A lot of times we'll get into our head, right? Like, we have preconceived notions, or we're afraid somebody's going to see us, and I don't want to do these things. You're not necessarily doing yoga poses or bending over, stretching, and you can do those things, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be simple, like slow movements that, even if you're in an office, people don't notice. You take a moment to yourself to close your eyes. People aren't going to notice or care. If you're there for 20 minutes with your eyes closed, then maybe they might think you're asleep. But if it's just a quick, like, I need a 90-second pause, start with the breath. See how that shifts your mind and body. Bare minimum, like breath work in itself can work wonders, lowering blood pressure, reducing cortisol levels. And once you see that as the bare minimum, and you don't have to be a breathwork expert, right? We seen different techniques like, the box breathing and 4-7-8 and, all those things. It could just be simple inhale and exhale, and that's good enough.
I'm glad you said that because I remember going on the YouTube to do this thing that people are calling breath work and somatic breathing, and just getting overwhelmed with all of like the complexity of it. And I'm just like, man, I have to be like a freaking Shaolin master to be able to Buddhist master or something to be able to figure this stuff out. And so what I've got from you was all I have to do is just sit down, relax, and breathe,
right? And
imagine a better outcome. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whatever you're envisioning, how you want to feel, walk yourself through the shift, basically. Like, where are you at in this moment? Breathing into those spaces that's you're carrying some of that stress, anxiety, whatever the case may be. Do some movement, and then be aware of the shift and how you want to move forward. Wow. It doesn't take long.
Do you remember hearing any of, like, did you grow up with this? Because I didn't. And I'm curious, like, where did you learn it from?
No, I did not grow up with it at all. I didn't. Oh gosh, I really didn't get into the space until 2018, 17, somewhere around there, when I really started, like, just as a student, kind of practicing yoga, becoming, just more aware of different health, mental health, physical health options that I had, because, just in my household growing up, there wasn't therapy. My parents didn't go to the gym at all. Maybe my mom occasionally did, like, jazzercise or Zumba at some point, those things. But, like, that wasn't something they practiced. They went to church, right? They had Jesus, and anything outside of that wasn't, appropriate, or, and so I just learned for myself. And then, even my marriage, both my husband and I feel like we can still, be religious. We can still believe in God and Jesus and still do these things, because the practice of somatics isn't a religious practice. It's a mind and body experience, and it's helping me, if anything, become closer to God, because now I'm in touch with, how I feel, and I'm able to take ownership of how I feel and how I interact, and how I present to others. And I can now more effectively even communicate to my physicians and therapists, all these things, so that I can get a better continuity of care versus saying, this hurts. This has been going on for 2 years and I don't know why. Right now I can better define these things and get the help that I need.
Yeah. You mentioned therapist. When I was growing up, Black people didn't go to therapy. I didn't go to a therapist until it was like a divorce counselor or like,
right.
you know what I mean?
At the most, maybe it was like the high school guidance counselor, right? But that was it, maybe.
Right. Is that an important part of your mindfulness and well-being, mixing the somatic healing, the meditation, the yoga along with the therapy?
I believe so, because at least for me, what it did was having that kind of third party bystander that could help me identify, like, is it a me issue or is it a them issue? Like, help me understand, like, I'm going through this situation. I am upset at this person or they're upset at me, and kind of helping me take some ownership and recognize where I'm at with it. And then I would be able to use this practice as a tool outside of therapy to, change my mindset around it, with the hypnotherapy, change how I'm coping with it, instead of detaching or, crying all the time or angry, lashing out. I could use the somatics to level my emotions, get in touch more with my emotions, be able to communicate when I needed to, that I was angry instead of just carrying it and bottling it inside like I would normally do. I was not one to communicate how I feel. Even growing up, it wasn't something my family did. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't talk about how each other felt. I was never asked, how do you feel? Are you mad? Are you sad? Like, even going through certain traumatic experiences, it was just ignore it and move on. And that's still the practice of many of my family members to this day. But I had to learn how not to perpetuate that cycle and how that wasn't healthy for me. And, like I said, through the therapy, I could better identify some of those issues, where it was coming from, what some of those feelings were, and then just be able to go home and do the work. And I found that, even for others that I work with, it's helpful to have both, because those that are going to a therapist, seeing a therapist, sometimes they find themselves just kind of in this constant cycle, just stuck, struggling to make a breakthrough. And at least in my opinion, the breakthroughs are able to happen faster when you have the tools you need to manage.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being so open and being a champion for this work that you're doing. I think it's so needed. It is so needed. Something else I was thinking about, the hypnotherapy. What about the folks? Because I'll tell you, I think I had hit rock bottom almost with my anxiety, and I was just like desperate. And I found some hypnotherapy stuff on YouTube, and then I ordered some stuff, and then I even got hypnotized on this show when I was like really, really going through it, and it freaking worked. Is there anything that you could say to the person that is listening to this, watching this right now, where they're like, "Ah, man, I'm thinking about doing it. It sounds pretty woo woo and fake to me. Can you help me sway them to this?"
Yeah. At least some common misconceptions people have that might deter them, right? Like they often think of the stage performer, the hypnotherapist, right? And while that is a thing, if you're looking to use it for specific purposes, like we mentioned, overcoming fears, reducing stress, anxiety, overcoming addictions is another thing. That's a completely separate thing, right? And so the hypnotherapist cannot make you do anything you don't want to do. If you're coming to them saying, I have a lot of anxiety when I get on stage and I really want to find a way to reduce this. If that's what you want and you're already in the mind frame of that what you want, but you just don't know how to achieve it, then it can happen. But if you're going to them saying, here, another example, oh, my spouse said I should quit smoking, but I don't really want to. Well, if you don't want to and you haven't convinced yourself that you should, you still enjoy it despite all the health issues, I can go through the motions and talk about the health issues, talk about your past and what you've been through, what causes you to smoke and all those things. But if that kind of breakthrough hasn't happened and you still want to smoke, you're still going to smoke. We can even go through the motions of actually, putting you in a trance state, but you may not see the benefit. And so I say all that to say you have to have an open mind, and you have to at least have an idea of what you want. We can get more crystal clear on what that is, what exactly it is that you want in the session. But if you come, I don't know what I want, I just want you to do something, then what's the point?
So you got to have intention.
Right.
And actually an actual intention, and actually want the change, and not because somebody said that you should do it. Otherwise it won't work, right?
Right. Exactly.
That is some good stuff. So I know that the people that are watching this, they're like, oh man, this is exciting, because now I'm excited to practice some somatic exercises. And, I think I told you this before, I'm going to buy the book and I'm going to sit it here on my desk at work. So for the people that's watching and they can see the book behind you, I'm sure they're like trying to look for it right now. Once they get that book, because I know that they're going to get it, because I don't know, you did a really good job in convincing us that this is some good healing. I'm going to put that out there.
I try.
A really good job. What can they expect in that book? What would they get? How's this going to make their life easier?
Yeah.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah. So if you go online, especially a lot of places people go is Amazon. It's on Amazon, but it's actually a 3-part series. So the one you're seeing here is book 1. And I like to view it as kind of the point to the pain, right? It's a tool. It's not necessarily meant to be read from cover to cover. You can, but if you're needing it in the moment, like, I am a desk worker and my shoulder is killing me. I've been sitting at my desk for 5 hours, can't move. I can't get up because I have more back-to-back meetings, but I need some relief. There's a whole section specifically for desk workers. If you suffer from sciatic pain, there's a section on that, lower back pain. So you can find the areas that are going to benefit you the most, and it will give you the exercises, give you some breath work activities, even give you a few guided steps. Here's kind of a routine that you can do, a short routine to help reset you in that moment. So it's a great beginner introductory tool to use. Like I said, you're welcome to read it cover to cover, but you don't have to until you're ready. And there's also videos that are accompanied with it. So people that might need a little bit more, I try to be as descriptive as possible so that you can read it. There's also an audiobook, but if you want to see the videos, I've pretty much done. A majority of the exercises are video recorded as well.
Oh, wow.
And then book 2 is kind of, I call it the mastery. So when you're ready to go deeper, you need a little bit more of a reset. I go more into the meditation aspect of it. We don't really touch the meditation that much in book 1, but people who are ready to go a little deeper, that's where book 2 can meet them at. The folks that are already kind of have a baseline, they can start at book 2 or, pick up both. And then book 3 is for those who also maybe need something a little bit deeper, but it's more focuses on the grief, the trauma. Like, I'm still feeling these sensations. I think it's linked to some of the trauma that I'm going through. Maybe it's been, a couple years that I've been dealing with this, with it being unaddressed. I need a little bit deeper work. That's what book 3 is for.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. This sounds like a really good series. I 100%, if I would have listened to this podcast episode 8 years ago, and we would have been talking about this, I probably would have just kept going. But like and I want everybody to know this, like, this is real stuff, that trauma is stored in the body. And this sounds like it is a good way to get rid of that trauma that's in the body. And I was going to ask you, why is that, and how does that happen? And I have an example for you. There was a traumatic experience. This is an example. It was a traumatic experience, and I remember sitting up in my room. I remember sitting up and just getting this like crazy back pain, and all of a sudden I'm like, it was like in the middle of this traumatic experience, and man, that was the beginning of that back pain. Until people might think that I'm crazy, but I went to a meditation retreat, and after the meditation retreat, that back pain was gone. So what was that about?
Yeah. Well, oftentimes when you go through a traumatic event, whether it be emotional or physical, like actually I was in a car accident this past November.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I experienced similar pain, right? That shooting pain from, my lower back down my leg. But you might notice it immediately in the moment, and maybe it will subside, shortly after. Like, oh, okay, I'm all right. Like, so with the accident, I felt that pain, but then once the kind of the adrenaline levels came down a little bit, like, oh, I'm all right, But when we ignore it, we don't continue to nurture that feeling. Like, what caused that? Do I really feel all right? Like, am I still emotionally tied to that? Am I still feeling some of that pain and ignoring it? It will start to build up. Your body will start to make adjustments to compromise. Like, we'll continue to tell ourselves, I'm okay. Maybe that pain was my lower back on my left side. Now I'm just going to bear more weight on my right side. Mm-hmm. And eventually we're walking lopsided, after, months and years, until, our body collapses on us, or we're going to a doctor and had to have, an x-ray or something that shows like, hey, this is off, Mm-hmm. But because it happened so long ago, we may not immediately remember, like, oh, it was related to this situation. Like, I remember exactly when I felt that, but I ignored it and I just continued to move forward, acted like nothing was wrong, didn't get the treatment that I needed. Maybe I needed to see a chiropractor, another physical therapist, or, other, ways to treat it, or just doing some stretching, or, there's a lot of ways we can, holistically treat ourselves, or, go to the doctor and see therapy for. But when we ignore it, our body just adapts. it makes those adjustments, but they're not necessarily healthy adjustments.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I was curious if you could address to close us out, the person that's listening right now that feel exhausted, disconnected, anxious, or physically overwhelmed, and they've been carrying it for a long time. Like, can you address them?
Yeah. If you're feeling that sense of overwhelm, that stress, that sleepless night, that thing that's waking you up at night, remember to take a deep breath and let it go. Let it go physically, let it go mentally. Know that whatever is hanging over you right now, you're going to get through it. You may not know the exact path. You may not know exactly how things will resolve, but you can get through it as a physically, mentally present person and with lower stress and anxiety levels. We want to see you on the other side.
Awesome. This was such an important conversation. I think a lot of people have been taught to override themselves for so long. They don't recognize what safety or peace feels like. And I hope today's episode gave somebody permission to slow down long enough to listen to themselves. Dr. Griffin, thank you for being here. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and they want to work with you one-on-one, how would they do that?
Yeah, check out my website, drdaniellegriff.com. All my resources are there. You can book a one-on-one call with me, get some more information. You can also visit my social media channels, which are also Dr. Danielle Griff.
And to everyone listening, thank you for being a part of the Leaders Lead community. And I want you to remember that leaders lead even when it hurts. And I'm not talking about leading them. I'm talking about leading you. Ooh, that was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing.